The vast darkness of space stretched out like an endless canvas, silent and cold. The Orion sector had known peace for generations, a delicate balance maintained by the Galactic Concordance, a complex network of alien civilizations that believed conflict was a relic of the past. On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Captain Jun Park stood motionless, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. The warship moved with an unusual grace, a predator gliding through the cosmic ocean. Its hull was a deep obsidian black, absorbing light instead of reflecting it, making the massive vessel almost invisible against the starry backdrop. Lieutenant Da Kim's fingers danced across the sensor arrays. Something was different about this approach. The ship's advanced stealth technology made traditional scanning methods obsolete. Each movement was calculated, each system operating with a precision that suggested years of careful preparation. The alien monitoring stations in the Orion sector first noticed the disturbance as a slight ripple in spacetime, quantum fluctuations that seemed almost imperceptible. But these were not random events. They were deliberate, controlled, a message written in the language of advanced physics. Aboard the monitoring stations, junior communication officers began to feel an unusual tension. The standard protocol response systems were failing. Whatever was approaching did not conform to any known vessel design in the Galactic Concordance archives. Commander Sung Lee reviewed the preliminary data. Fragments of information suggested something extraordinary, a vessel that could manipulate spatial dynamics in ways previously thought impossible. The energy readings were unlike anything encountered before. It was as if the ship itself was a living system, adaptive and intelligent. The Defiance continued its approach. No warnings were sent. No diplomatic channels were opened. This was not a negotiation. This was a statement. Inside the ship, crew members moved with a disciplined rhythm. Their uniforms were simple, dark gray with minimal insignia, designed for functionality rather than decoration. Each person knew their role, their purpose. This was more than a military mission. This was a return. Historical records would later show that humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. The enslaved colonies, the generations lost to alien oppression, had not been forgotten. Every technological advancement, every strategic calculation was a step towards this precise moment. The ship's artificial intelligence system, nicknamed Horizon, processed massive amounts of data each second. It tracked potential defensive responses, calculated approach vectors, and maintained a constant analysis of the surrounding space. But there was something more, a subtle undercurrent of determination that went beyond pure computational logic. As the UES Defiance moved closer to the sector's primary monitoring zone, the ambient electromagnetic field began to shift. Sensitive equipment on nearby stations started to malfunction, not through damage, but through an overwhelming complexity of signals that current technology could not comprehend. Captain Park allowed herself a slight smile. Years of planning, of gathering intelligence, of developing technologies that pushed the boundaries of human understanding. All of it was about to become reality. The aliens who had once considered humanity a disposable species were about to learn a very different lesson. The ship continued its approach, silent, calculated, inevitable. Something fundamental was about to change in the Orion sector, and humanity was bringing that change. The first wave of alien sensors finally registered the full magnitude of the approaching vessel. But by then, it was already too late. The Defiance had arrived. The first signals of contact crackled across the communication networks of the Galactic Concordance. Lieutenant Da Kim watched the strange interference patterns with a calm that betrayed years of training. The alien defense systems were trying to understand what was happening, but their technology was already obsolete. On the distant monitoring stations, confusion quickly transformed into panic. The approaching vessel ignored every standard communication protocol. No standard greeting, no diplomatic identifier, no request for peaceful passage, just a presence, massive and unexplained. The Zinthari communication officers frantically adjusted their quantum relay systems. Their advanced technology had always worked before. Sophisticated translation matrices, multi-dimensional communication networks, quantum entanglement communication channels. All of them now seemed like children's toys against the approaching ship's systems. Commander Sung Lee adjusted the ship's external communication interface. A single transmission was prepared, precise, calculated, and carrying a weight of historical significance. It would be a message that would change everything. The communication burst was unlike anything the alien civilizations had ever encountered. It carried multiple layers of information, historical records, technological data, and a clear, unambiguous statement of intent. Not a request, not a negotiation, a declaration. Across the monitoring stations, translation systems began to break down. The message contained complexities that defied current linguistic algorithms. It spoke of history, of suffering, of a patient and calculated return. "This is humanity," the transmission stated. "We are here." Those 5 words carried more meaning than entire diplomatic archives. They were not just words. They were a judgment. The alien defense networks began to activate. Defensive formations started to assemble, but something was different. The usual confidence was gone. In its place was a growing sense of uncertainty. Lieutenant Da Kim watched the response patterns. The aliens were confused. They had no template for this kind of encounter. Humanity was not behaving like any species they had previously encountered. The UES Defiance continued its approach. No deviation, no hesitation. Aboard the ship, the crew moved with a precision that suggested something more than military training. There was a sense of purpose, of historical correction. Each movement, each system activation was a step towards a moment long anticipated. Quantum scanners began mapping the sector's defensive capabilities, not for invasion, but for understanding. Every detail was being analyzed, every defensive system cataloged. The first wave of alien communication attempts were sophisticated but futile. Their most advanced systems pinged against the Defiance's shields like raindrops against steel. No response came, no acknowledgement. Captain Jun Park reviewed the incoming data streams. Decades of preparation had led to this moment. Intelligence gathered from liberated human colonies, technological developments pushed beyond known boundaries, a patient strategy of technological superiority. All of it was about to be demonstrated. The Orion sector held its collective breath. First contact was happening. But this was not a meeting of equals. This was a reckoning. Humanity had returned, and they were neither asking for permission nor seeking approval. The transmission continued, a relentless stream of information that carried within it the weight of generations of suffering and a promise of something entirely new. Not conquest, not revenge, but a fundamental restructuring of galactic power dynamics. The Defiance moved forward, silent, determined, unstoppable. Something fundamental was about to change in the universe, and humanity was the instrument of that change. The first defensive formations of the alien fleet approached with a confidence built on centuries of unchallenged technological superiority. Their crystalline ships moved in intricate patterns, designed for peaceful patrol and minimal conflict. They had no concept of the technological hurricane about to descend upon them. Commander Sung Lee's fingers touched the weapon control interface. The UES Defiance's systems hummed with an energy that felt almost alive. Quantum disruption cannons prepared to activate, weapons that could literally unravel molecular structures with mathematical precision. The alien fleet commander, a veteran of countless peaceful encounters, watched the human vessel approach. His species had not engaged in serious combat for over 3 centuries. The last time they had prepared defensive maneuvers was during historical simulations. First contact became first conflict in less than 17 seconds. The Defiance's weapon systems activated, not with explosions, not with traditional projectile or energy weapons, but with something far more sophisticated. Quantum compression fields began to systematically deconstruct the alien ships at their fundamental atomic levels. Ships that moment ago looked magnificent began to simply dissolve, not explode, not fragment, but break down into pure energy and basic molecular components. No debris, no traditional weapon damage, just complete, precise deconstruction. The human ship moved with a grace that defied traditional physics. Each movement calculated, each energy projection designed for maximum efficiency. The alien defensive networks tried to respond, but their systems were reading something impossible. Gravitic compression missiles launched, weapons that could crush entire squadrons by manipulating fundamental gravitational forces. Where traditional weapons would create explosions, these missiles simply compressed matter into ultra-dense packets, eliminating entire formations with surgical precision. Lieutenant Da Kim monitored the external sensors. The battle, if it could be called that, was completely one-sided. The human technological superiority was not just advanced. It was revolutionary. Energy projectors began to activate, cutting through defensive shields like they were thin paper. Technologies that defied current scientific understanding demonstrated humanity's quantum leap in technological development. Captain Jun Park watched the proceedings with a calm that suggested this was a rehearsed demonstration rather than an actual combat scenario. Every movement, every weapon discharge was calculated, not for maximum destruction, but for maximum understanding. The alien fleet commanders could not comprehend what was happening. Their most advanced defensive systems were being systematically neutralized without any apparent effort. No traditional weapon damage, no explosions, just precise, mathematical elimination. In less than 20 minutes, the entire first wave of defenders ceased to exist. Not a single human vessel suffered even the slightest damage. The technological gap was so significant that it resembled a modern military confronting Stone Age warriors. The Defiance continued its approach. No celebratory communications, no traditional military broadcasts. Just a continuous, methodical progression through the sector. Sensor systems aboard the human vessel continued collecting data, not just about the combat, but about the fundamental technological infrastructure of the alien civilizations. Every system was being mapped, analyzed, understood. The message was clear. Humanity's technological capabilities were not just superior. They represented an entirely new paradigm of scientific understanding. Each weapon system, each defensive mechanism demonstrated years of patient research. Technologies developed in secret, built from the collective suffering and determination of generations of humans who had been previously enslaved. This was more than a military operation. This was a technological statement. A declaration that humanity had not just survived, they had evolved. The Orion sector would never be the same again. In the aftermath of the technological devastation, a holographic projection emerged across every communication channel in the Orion sector. Admiral Hai Kim's face appeared, calm, determined, carrying the weight of generations of human suffering. Her voice was neither angry nor vengeful. It was clinical, precise, a historical accounting that would change everything. The projection began to reveal the stories hidden for centuries. Human colonies stripped of resources, entire generations enslaved, children taken from their families, entire civilizations reduced to labor units for alien economic systems. Each word was accompanied by verified historical records, not propaganda, not emotional manipulation, pure, documented fact. The alien civilizations watched in stunned silence. Their communication networks, which had always been tools of control and information management, now became conduits of their own historical judgment. Images began to appear, generations of human suffering, colonies reduced to mining complexes, families torn apart, scientific research suppressed, cultural identities systematically eliminated. Lieutenant Da Kim managed the transmission systems. Every communication channel was locked. No interference possible. No ability to disconnect or block the broadcast. The reckoning was not about revenge. It was about accountability. Admiral Hai Kim's presentation demonstrated something far more powerful than military might. It showed a calculated, systematic exposure of historical injustices. Each fact was backed by irrefutable documentation. The alien civilizations that had participated in human oppression now found themselves exposed. Their comfortable narratives of peaceful coexistence were being systematically dismantled. No emotional arguments, no dramatic speeches, just pure, documented historical truth. The UES Defiance continued its approach through the sector, its very presence a statement of technological and moral superiority. This was not an invasion. This was a judgment. Species that had remained silent during humanity's darkest period now trembled. Their diplomatic networks, their economic systems, their entire societal structures were being fundamentally challenged. Commander Sung Lee watched the transmission, knowing that each moment was changing galactic power dynamics forever. This was not about punishment. This was about fundamental restructuring. The holographic records showed not just suffering, but human resilience. How enslaved colonies maintained their cultural identity. How suppressed scientific research continued in hidden laboratories. How human spirit remained unbroken. Each alien civilization was forced to confront its own historical record. No ability to manipulate, no capacity to hide, no method to reframe the narrative. The transmission continued, revealing technological developments created in secret, advanced research developed under conditions of extreme oppression, scientific breakthroughs born from survival. Admiral Hai Kim's final statement was simple: "We are not seeking revenge. We are seeking justice. We are seeking change." The Orion sector fell into a profound silence. The comfortable illusions of peaceful coexistence had been permanently shattered. Humanity had returned, not as victims, but as a force of historical correction. The reckoning had begun, and nothing would ever be the same again. As the final infrastructure of the alien regime crumbled, a new process of reconstruction began. The UES Defiance was no longer just a warship. It had become an instrument of systematic restoration. First Officer Wu Park oversaw the deployment of advanced medical and restoration technologies. Liberated human colonies began to emerge from the shadows, like seeds breaking through concrete after decades of suppression. The approach was calculated and precise. No wild celebration, no chaotic revenge, just methodical reconstruction. Advanced medical systems began healing generations of trauma. Genetic restoration programs identified and repaired genetic damages caused by decades of forced labor and experimental oppression. Each treatment was not just medical. It was an act of historical recovery. Communication networks that were once tools of control now became channels of reconnection. Families separated for generations began to find each other. Cultural archives thought permanently destroyed were slowly reconstructed. Lieutenant Da Kim managed the restoration databases. Every piece of human history, every cultural memory, every scientific record was being carefully mapped and restored. The alien civilizations watched in stunned silence. This was not a traditional conquest. This was a fundamental restructuring of galactic social systems. Technological transfer programs began, not as punishment, but as a method of systemic education. The advanced technologies developed by humanity would be gradually introduced, forcing a complete reimagining of scientific and social possibilities. Planetary restoration teams moved across previously enslaved colonies. Ecological systems damaged by centuries of industrial exploitation were carefully rehabilitated. Each intervention was precise, calculated, showing a level of technological and ecological understanding far beyond previous galactic standards. Commander Sung Lee oversaw the initial reconstruction protocols. The goal was not destruction. The goal was transformation. Educational systems were rebuilt, not with revenge, but with a comprehensive understanding of historical truth. Young generations of both human and alien populations would learn the complete, unfiltered history of what had occurred. The UES Defiance moved through the sector, its presence a constant reminder of the new reality. No longer a weapon of war, now an instrument of systemic change. Quantum communication networks began linking previously isolated human colonies. Information began to flow freely. Scientific research suppressed for generations now found open channels of development. Captain Jun Park understood this was more than a military mission. This was a generational reset, a moment where an entire galactic social structure would be fundamentally reimagined. Economic systems that had been built on human exploitation were systematically dismantled. New frameworks of cooperative development were introduced, not through force, but through demonstrable technological and social superiority. The alien civilizations that had once considered humans as disposable labor units now found themselves in a completely new paradigm. They were not being conquered. They were being re-educated. Restoration teams worked with remarkable efficiency. Entire planetary systems that had been reduced to industrial complexes were being returned to their original ecological balance. Technologies that could heal planetary ecosystems were deployed with surgical precision. Cultural preservation became a priority. Languages thought to be extinct were carefully reconstructed. Artistic traditions buried under generations of oppression were meticulously recovered. The message was clear. Humanity had not just survived. They had evolved into something far more sophisticated than their oppressors could have ever imagined. As the restoration continued, a new galactic order began to take shape, not built on military might, but on a fundamental understanding of justice, technological innovation, and collective healing. The UES Defiance completed its mission. Humanity had returned, and the universe would never be the same again.